Welcome back, everyone. Dustin here again, Average Guy Hi-Fi, and oh boy, that was a really long delay. Thank you guys for sticking around and staying subscribers. I know I lost a few, but I gained way more not making any videos the past couple months. So just to get it out of the way, my apologies. Kind of life, I'm not going to make excuses, but I was out just kind of enjoying the time when I could go out and be with friends and kind of hang out with stuff, plus work's been really busy. So again, excuses, I'll just get those out of the way. Thank you very much for guys for sticking around because again, no videos for the past few months, and I've just continued to get subscribers, and that just kind of, it's been weighing on me, really, to just be totally honest. Every time I have a little bit of free time and I don't make a movie, it just kind of weighs on me, because kind of the initial reason I started this channel was like, hey, I'm going to make a video a week, and, when I spoke to Youthman, he's like, stay consistent with your videos, things like that, and just kind of let things slide a little bit. Doing one video a week for a year was a little bit of extra work kind of going on behind the scenes, plus life. So anyway, just getting that stuff out of the way. Thank you guys again for still sticking around. I am back. I've got some really awesome gear, like right there, that I'm prepared to review, that I've been listening to, testing out. Been buying some stuff behind the scenes as well too, so there's going to be a few really cool reviews coming up here. But anyway, this is the long overdue kind of my impressions of the Lexicon RV-6 that I ended up buying that replaced my Marantz SR7013. So for you guys that follow this channel, you know that I had a 5-month-old Marantz SR7013, just loved it, big fan of the Marantz. I had the matching 5-channel amplifier, was totally happy, probably going to keep those two pieces for a while, but then the 7013 was shutting off on me periodically and was having issues, so I had to send it in for service. But because I have this channel, I couldn't go as long as as it was going to take to get it repaired. So I ended up jumping on this, which is one of those brands that's, I would call it more of a boutique brand. Custom installers love Lexicon, things like that. I would actually kind of compare it to not JBL synthesis. I would say that would be like a step above, but this is no slouch either. This uses a lot of the technology that JBL synthesis and things, but it is a little bit older at this point. So I wanted to kind of give you guys my impressions of this receiver, kind of go over what I like about it, kind of compare it to that Marantz 7013. So we'll just dive right into it. Again, this is a Lexicon RV-6. Lexicon is definitely, I don't know, I would call it a boutique brand when it comes to home theater, but they're kind of known for higher end stuff that I really couldn't afford. So the MSRP on this was $3,900. This is a receiver, this isn't a processor, so that's kind of up there towards the higher end of things, at least for my budget. You can go way past that if you wanted to, but $3,900 for a receiver is kind of a lot of money, especially considering it doesn't come with a lot of the bells and whistles that I would say a lot of the kind of higher end receivers come with, like the new Marantz models, like the Yamahas, like the Denons, things like that. So, but that's kind of the reason that drew me to this receiver. That and the fact that I was able to pick it up for about $2,000, which is pretty good deal. Anytime you can kind of get somewhere around 50% off of a kind of higher end home audio gear, brand new with full warranty and everything, then that's always a good deal. So I have a lot of experiences when it comes to home theater receivers. As you guys know, the reason I made this channel is because I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive when it comes to buying home audio equipment, setting it up, testing it out, listening to it, and then just moving on. It's like one of those it's like my hobby, I would say. When I have a little bit of free time, I'm always wanting to kind of test things out. And so I've owned I've owned many Pioneer Elites. My favorite was probably the SC27. I've owned obviously that Marantz SR7013. I've owned a couple NAD receivers. Really like NAD receivers. They don't get a whole lot of. They sell a lot of receivers, but in the U.S. it seems that it's again one of those seems like more of a boutique. It's not the Yamahas of the world. I've owned Yamaha Avantage receivers, and a few Denons. Like that last Denon that I replaced with that Marantz was the X3300, which was a wonderful receiver. I kind of had an amplifier, so I was using it more as a processor at the end there, but literally had no issues with it. And I kept it for about 3 years, which is, still looking back at that was some money really well spent, because it was another open box bargain that I ended up getting. So when I started having issues with that Denon, I decided to jump on this Lexicon I had owned a couple Lexicon pieces. I can't even remember, 20 years doing this hobby, owning hundreds of speakers, owning hundreds of subwoofers. It's really hard to remember what models, but I think it was some type of something for a 2-channel system that I had. But I was really impressed with the build quality. And to be totally honest, right when I got this thing shipped and I opened it up, very impressed with the build quality of this. It's a little bit more utilitarian, meaning that it's kind of simple design. Again, doesn't come with those bells and whistles that some of those other brands, but truth be told, I'm much more interested in high quality sounding receivers than if it has like any of the other features that a lot of these other receivers have. So just to give you a little bit of a background here, kind of basic front. It has a big kind of volume knob. You can mess with the inputs. It's got a pretty basic display. It doesn't give you a whole lot of information, but truth be told, with that Marantz SR7013, with that little window, you had to have the door open to really get the information on the front anyway. So I'm not really missing all that. It does have a graphic user interface, meaning that when you have an HDMI plugged into it, you can go in when you're messing with the menus and things like that. It looks really old school, so I think that that's probably a part of the like the utilitarian aspect that I like. It's pretty basic looking, but it's really easy to navigate. It has 7 HDMI inputs and 3 outputs. It has this is another one that's kind of funny, especially considering modern receivers come with so many internal amplifiers. This one has 7 basically. So it processes 11 channels, but you need to have a amplifier or two to power the other 4 channels. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it has the I kind of labeled these with little dots there. Obviously, it won't come with that, but it has the front right, it has the surround right, surround back right, it has the center channel, the front left, the surround left, and the surround back left. Those are the only internal amplifiers. Another reason that really drew me to this, and this is something that a lot of people that are in this hobby know about, but a lot of these manufacturers inflate their numbers. So they'll give you like, hey, it's 120 watts times 9 or whatever, how many amplifiers there is. But ultimately, you start dividing that power up when you get more channels added. So when you start plugging more speakers into, that power starts to decline. The cool thing about this receiver, and some of the higher end kind of boutique style companies, they give you actual rated 7 channels driven power. So this one's 90 watts times 7, which is a number that I love because it's a number that I know. I don't have to try to figure out the math if I keep adding speakers to it, things like that. That's 90 pure watts going to all 7 channels. That's a big one for me. I wish that manufacturers would just be honest with their numbers, but we as consumers, we get to these stores and we're like, oh, look at this one, it's 140 watts times 11, but then when you read the specs, it's like 1 channel driven, stuff like that. So I love the fact that they give you actual power. That was a big one for me too. But I totally get it. Everybody else is doing it, so the other manufacturers are just going along with the flow. This is not it's being closed out, so there's a few more left. I think you could still pick them up for around that $2,000 range, but you have to really try to hunt and find one of these things. But again, it has 7 HDMI inputs, 3 outputs. It has 2 subwoofer channels. So it's pretty basic. Has a little fan on the back. Other than that, it just kind of focuses the attention to certain things. It's pretty simple, not a whole lot of bells and whistles, but Lexicon does a fantastic job, I think, when it comes to focusing the attention to where it really counts to me. Has a very nice DAC in it. It's a beefy amplifier, a nice big power supply. It's a heavy cabinet, it's a beastly feeling amplifier, and it's simple to use. That way you're not too confused when you're running it. So again, 7 powered channels, 11 discrete channels, so you'd have to add an amplifier to add those other channels. Other than that, it's been just a total, I've just thoroughly enjoyed my time with this receiver. One little thing to kind of think about when you're buying something like this, it has Dirac Live, that was the game changer. I'll get into that when we start talking about sound a little bit farther down the line there. But there's not a whole lot of, like, if you have a Denon, say 4400, you can just Google, hey, Denon 4400. There will be tons of pages of people giving you their impressions, giving you some help for setting up things, all of that type of stuff. This receiver, if you Google it, there's like 12 articles about it. And again, because it's a little bit smaller, they probably sold 1/16th, you know, maybe even less than that, than some of the bigger mass-produced receivers out there. I'm just throwing that number out there, but that's probably even less than that. But so when you have questions and you are kind of working through things, then it makes it a little bit more difficult to try to troubleshoot because there's not as many people out there that own it. That's just one little thing that's a little bit weird, but definitely worth considering, especially if you're a beginner. And again, this channel is trying to focus on helping people that are kind of either getting into the hobby or that don't want to get too caught up with all of the numbers and the stats and all that. They want to enjoy the hobby. And that's kind of, you know, having that kind of in the background, just knowing that you're not going to have as many resources. Luckily, I reached out to Lexicon. They were quick to reply, things like that. So the support's good on their end of things, but you can't just Google things at 2 a.m. or whatever if you're up just kind of messing around. So that's something to consider when you're considering this type of receiver. Again, out of all the receivers that I've owned, I would say that Lexicon probably basically kind of goes in line with RCAM, which, you know, a lot of people say that this is basically an RCAM receiver, or RCAM is a Lexicon receiver, things like that. But I've owned RCAM receivers in the past, super happy with them, very smaller market. I think it's bigger over in Europe, things like that. Same with Lexicon. But really, this receiver has been just a dream. I've had a blast getting used to it. And again, I was dreading making this video because everything sounds so good in my room over there that I have to unplug everything, set it over here, go back over there, plug everything back up, show you guys the receiver in action. So I was kind of putting things off a little bit. But again, we're moving past that. My apologies for the delay. Let's go over there. I'll just show you a couple of movie scenes so you guys can kind of hear. Again, this isn't the best way to test. This isn't the way to test receivers out, but just to let you guys get a little action shot of this, how it looks in the rack, things like that. A lot of my other channels, because I've been playing CDs for my 2 channel, they've all been demonetized. Things like, I've never monetized the channel, but right now it's just copyright infringements and stuff like that. So if you guys have advice for me, what to play for 2 channels so you guys can hear the speakers without all my videos getting struck down, let me know in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. So let's go over there. We'll just check out a movie. I haven't even decided yet which movie. I just wanted to start this video so I stopped coming up with excuses to stop putting this thing down and making the video. So I'll pick a movie. I'll show you the action. It's lived a really simple life. You know, it has the Aircom T10 fan on top of it. I even bought a Monolith 5X. So right now I'm not even using any of the internal amplifiers. But before that Monolith amplifier came in, I was using this receiver to power some really awesome speakers, which are right over there. I'll be making that video and then selling them. I'm going to be super sad when they're gone. But the power that this receiver puts out, especially for my little room, never noticed a need for more power. But as a lot of us in this hobby, my brain is always like, you know what, more power is always better. So I added that Monolith 5X amplifier with the fan. So this thing's basically kind of acting as a processor at this point in time. So it's pretty simple life, but when it was powering speakers, I did notice that it had a little bit more oomph behind the channels than the Marantz. The Marantz was a very powerful receiver too, but could be subliminal. You know, some of these things, it's a placebo effect. You buy something new and you talk yourself into it's better. But I really did notice a difference in depth. But mainly what I noticed was Dirac Live. So we'll talk about that when we get to sound. So let's hop over there. I'll hook this thing back up, which is going to be a pain. I'm only using a 4.1 system right now. And you guys are like, Dustin, you have a YouTube channel that talks about audio. But this room is so easy for me to energize, so easy for me to get the engagement for sound. I am planning on adding a center channel here in the near future. I'm just waiting for the right one to pop up because I'm using those Klipsch THX KL 650 THX for left and right. And I have a center channel in storage, but I'm going to be adding the left surround and the right surround as well too. So anyway, I've been rambling on here. Let's jump over there. I'll show you it in action. Then we'll pop back over here and I'll give you guys my overall impressions. And then I'm off to the races. I've got a bunch of stuff to review. I've got some Sony Core speakers, things like that a few people that have reviewed. I would love to put them up against these Klipsch RP600M. So let's go over there. Let's watch a little bit of a movie and then we'll come back over here and I'll give you guys my average guy hi-fi score. Okay, everyone, we got the Lexicon RV-6 all set up again here. I also got some new seats, as you guys can probably tell, but, you know, I would love to put just traditional home theater seats in here, but as you guys know, this place is pretty tiny, so I wouldn't be able to pull that off. So I kind of went with something that was a little bit more retro style. I'm a little bit of a mid-century modern guy, but anyway, that's all. If you guys want a video on that, just let me know. But they're actually pretty nice seats. They're kind of that traditional Eames style chair that you see in movies and stuff like that, but they're replicas. Can't afford the real thing. But anyway, again, got that Lexicon all set up. We're using the Klipsch KL650 THX. I actually ordered some just legs, table legs off of Amazon, because these are rather large speakers with a couple of 6.5-inch woofers there, and I didn't want to pay a whole lot of money for speaker stands, so got these for like $100. So I'm super happy with the way they turned out. Need to do a little cable management and stuff like that. Also need to dig that center channel out and get that thing set up, but just wanted to get this video off and running here. So wanted to kind of give you guys a little close-up of the other parts that came with the Lexicon. Right there is the microphone. It's definitely a higher quality microphone than I would say the Odyssey microphone is. Never had any issues with it, but it really, Dirac Live with this microphone kind of pulled a lot out of my speakers and gave me some really good separation is the best way I would describe it. Just sounds more like a home theater here. And got my Logitech Harmony Hub all hooked up to the Lexicon as well too, so it controls everything. I figured I would just put on Ready Player One. That's kind of one of my go-to movies. I know I'm going to get copyrighted and all these things, but I'm not really worried about monetizing this thing yet. Maybe one day, that would be great, but right now it's still got a normal job. So that's kind of how it looks in place there. We got the LG C9 OLED, the Panasonic 820 Blu-ray player, and Xbox. I'm still waiting for whatever reason, that Xbox, I don't want to pay over MSRP for anything. That's not the style that I am. So, you know, I've been wanting that new Xbox for a long time now, but it's still just out of stock and everything. So that's how it looks. Again, we got the AC Infinity T10 fan on top of that. That over there is the Monolith 5X amplifier. Actually, I didn't even realize this until I started recording this, but I did add the Panamax M5400 PM surge protector as well too. So got everything all hooked up. The pros I would kind of give you from this receiver would be Dirac Live. We'll jump over to it in sound quality and things like that over there, but really that was kind of the big leap from the Marantz. I always loved Odyssey, but it was getting a little long in the tooth when I had it, but I know that Odyssey's came out with an app that's supposed to be much better than the older app, and then I also heard little rumors that Odyssey's doing another big upgrade, so I'm excited to see what they do, because again, I'm a big fan of Denon and Marantz products, and always liked Onkyo, so, you know, these are just things that, who knows, if it's the newer technology and all that stuff comes out, I might be making a switch again. The thing that is kind of holding this receiver back, I would say, is probably just a little bit for the age. It's HDR10. It's not HDR10 Plus. It's also not HDMI 2.1. It's HDMI 2.0A, which is all I really need anyway. I'm just using 4K. I'm not kind of stepping up to the faster processors and stuff like that when it comes to video quality. This TV is a couple years old now, so if I ever make the leap, I always try to want to be on the leap. I always look at the receivers or processors, kind of like the computer of your home theater system. So really what it comes down to is if it makes a big leap up and 8K becomes more popular, I get the new Xbox where I need 120 hertz, stuff like that, then I'll probably make the leap. But again, right now I've been super happy with this Lexicon. And again, that display right there, just to show it to you, show you the front end there. Nice, big, stamped aluminum front end. Very kind of industrial-looking design, which I just love about it. It goes beautifully with the other products in there, in the rack there. So it's a pretty simple system, to be honest. You know, I don't have a lot of channels. Again, I'm only running 4 speakers right now. I am using a Velodyne DD12, which is the previous, not the Plus, over there in the corner. I'm using an SVS SoundPath wireless subwoofer transmitter, so it kind of goes over to there. I would show you the corner, but I'm a little embarrassed. I had to move some garbage out of the way just so my room looks nice and pretty for you guys, but I'll be doing a review on that shortly as well, too, because I am thinking about upgrading my subwoofers here at some point in time, but that Velodyne's has been great. So here we go. Again, rambling on. The cons, I would say the remote quality is a little bit, it's for a roughly $4,000 receiver, it just seems like the remote itself it does everything you'd want. It's got a lighted display, stuff like that. There's the graphic user interface there, as you can kind of see it. A little bit old school looking. So, you know, it's not up on the latest technology, but again, Lexicon put all the focus, it seems, just towards sound quality, and that's definitely what this receiver does, and that's exactly what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for all the other little extras here. So I'll just push play, especially the remote's not that big of a deal because I just use this guy here. So we'll just push play. It's the race scene for Ready Player One.
Licensed skin over standard frame.
No, not the bike. Forget the bike. The girl. I think it's Artemis.
The Artemis? The sensor fixer?
I've seen all her walkthroughs, her Twitch streams. It's her. It's definitely her.
All right, I have to throw out my disclaimer again. Like Gene over at Audioholic says, you know, listening to speakers on YouTube, listening to receivers, processors, amplifiers on YouTube is definitely not the way to do it. So I encourage you all to try to get out there and listen to stuff whenever possible. Support your local audio shops, things like that, because the reason I say local audio shops is because they tend to put a little bit more emphasis behind making sure rooms are properly set up, meaning that if you go into Best Buy, I'm a big Best Buy guy, you know, we have a wonderful Magnolia with some very knowledgeable people, which I think a lot of people don't really have out that to their available to them. So, you know, that shop's great here, but it's just not ideal. They're selling a bunch of different brands of speakers and they're all crammed into one room. You play a song, you know, it's really hard to tell, but local audio shops, we got some really killer ones around here, and I'm hoping to try to get some type of relationship going with somebody here local where I'll buy speakers from there and whatever they're selling them for, and then trying to get some type of maybe them buying back from me. I don't exactly know how that'd work, but I'm a bargain hunter, and again, that's the reason this channel has been pretty successful. Is I want to be able to give you guys, let you guys know what's kind of up when it comes to good deals that are available. Speaking of that, right here is one of those good deals, and actually one of you great subscribers out there let me know about a deal on Amazon that was out there for the Sony CS42528 bookshelf speakers. So I'll be putting those up against the Klipsch RP600M. So I think that's the way this channel is really going to work for you guys, especially if I continue to put out content and not do this long of a gap. But if you guys let me know when there's sales, I'll grab it. You know, I'll buy it off Amazon. I'll buy new. I'll buy whatever used. And then that way I'm just using my money. There's no influence on it. I'm going to give you my honest opinion of this stuff. So that's kind of the reason I think that I have so many subscribers, considering my quality of my videos aren't up there when it's to people like Youth Man and Cheap Audio Man, stuff like that. Those are like my favorite YouTubers when it comes to audio, but this is a passion of mine, so I'm going to keep driving it forward, and who knows, one of these days if I start making money on this channel, then I'll start doing more editing, stuff like that. So anyway, this is a longer video. Let's just jump right into it. Now we're on to my favorite part of the video, where it's my overall impressions of the equipment that I'm reviewing. So for this Lexicon RV-6, we're going to go off the quality, kind of the construction, things like that. We're going to go off how it sounds. We're going to go off the MSRP price. We're going to go off the aesthetics. We're going to go off my price paid. Each category is worth up to 10 points, 10 being the best, 0 or 1 being the worst. And then we'll average those out, and I'll give you guys the average guy HiFi score. We'll just jump right into it from a quality standpoint. It's got a big transformer in it. It's got a beautiful, thick metal front plate on it. Very utilitarian looking, like I previously mentioned. I love the looks of it. I think it looks beautiful, especially next to that monolith amplifier. That's why I was kind of giving you guys the close-ups there of the how it sits. You know, I'm in 600 square feet. I get caught up in these beautiful home theater rooms, and one day, who knows, maybe I'll have one of those. But right now, aesthetics are really important to me because I'm in such a small place. I don't want it to just be all speakers and look terrible and things like that. So, but from a quality standpoint, that utilitarian look, just in the thickness of it, everything looks and feels high quality. The one area I'd nick it, like I showed you over there, for a nearly $4,000 receiver, the remote felt a little bit on the cheap end. You know, and the reason I say that is because I've had processors, things like that from like Emotiva, brands like Emotiva, where they give you like a nice metal remote, and it feels like it's like the little touches. It's like a nice steering wheel in a car. You spend $60,000 in a car, and it feels like a cheap steering wheel. Then that's like the thing you're always touching. So luckily, I have that Harmony Ultimate hub, so it's not that big a deal for me, but it might be a big deal for you guys if you use the remote. That would be the one nick. 9.5 out of 10 when it comes to quality. Just a beefy feeling receiver. It's big though. It needs room in the rack. So make sure you check the measurements and all that stuff. And I'll make the description. I loaded up with more impressions. I loaded up with where I purchased stuff. So be sure to check that out. That's a big part of the reason I think people like my channel. Sound. This is the big one. Dirac Live was ultimately a game changer for me, and I've been reading about it, and I've been wanting to try it, and I've always liked Odyssey, but again, in the previous video that I mentioned, it was getting a little bit long in the tooth. Now, I'm a little bit at a disadvantage here because I didn't get a chance to really mess around with the new features that they added to the app, and I heard that made a world of difference. So I'm not going to put down Marantz or Denon. I'm a big fan of their products, but Dirac Live, it is not as user-friendly. So you'll have to, there's a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to it. You're going to have a laptop. It's not like you just plug in a microphone, let the thing do it. You have to have a laptop there. It comes with that nicer quality microphone. But ultimately, what it ended up doing was it actually found that I had a blown tweeter in a speaker. Youthman had the same thing with his La Scalas, but it found out that I had a blown tweeter in one of my speakers when it ran the sweeps, and Odyssey didn't catch it for whatever reason. So anyway, I replaced the tweeter, not a big deal. But once I got Dirac kind of dialed in, I really noticed the separation. It felt like I was in a little bit of a larger room, meaning that the sounds were moving around the room a little bit more. I just think that it was definitely a step up from Odyssey. I'm still a fan of Odyssey, and if you have a Denon or Marantz receiver or even Okio now, I think that you're still doing good, but there are levels to this game. You jump up to like JBL and the Trinitov, all those type of things, and it can kind of go from there. But for Dirac Live, for considering I paid $2,000 for that receiver, I'm blown away by the sound quality. When I was shooting the video over there, I was actually using the Lexicon internal amplifiers as well too. The monolith was on just for the pretty blue light, but I was powering those speakers with it. And again, you can't really tell using this little inexpensive lapel microphones, things like that. But really, ultimately, the sound quality versus the Marantz SR7013, which is a receiver, versus the Lexicon RV-6, which is also a receiver. Hands down, I prefer the sound of the Lexicon. 9.5 when it comes to sound for the Lexicon. The MSRP, that's a tough pill to swallow. Like I mentioned, $3,900 for a receiver is a lot of money. That's way past what the average consumer would be willing to spend. You know, $2,000 seems to be about the most popular if you're kind of in a higher end home theater gear. You can get away with $500 receivers that do very well, that have HDR10 plus, which that one's only HDR10, that have HDMI 2.1, that one's only HDMI 2.0A. So there's technological advances that have gone past there, but again, it's more of a boutique brand, and I think it really bodes well with custom installers, things like that. So MSRP, this is the biggest knock on it. 7.5 out of 10, still a good score. But if you're paying MSRP, that was again, that's a tough pill to swallow. I would never be able to afford a $3,900 receiver, but when you almost get half off, it kind of gets into my ballpark there. When it comes to the aesthetics, I gave it an 8.5. I love that utilitarian look, like I mentioned, kind of more of a minimalist style guy. I don't like a whole lot of stuff, even though I'm surrounded by speakers and stuff like that right now. But I like the looks of it. It's very simple. It looks really nice next to that Panamex surge protector in the monolith. Like, for whatever reason, I know people are like, ideally you wouldn't have any lights around your TV. It would be in a rack in a closet, or it'd be off to the side or in another room. But again, this is a place I rent, 600 square feet, so things got to kind of look nice in my room, and I think it really does look nice. It's impressive looking, doesn't look like something that's inexpensive. Aesthetics, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. It has a pretty simple display. That would be the one thing that I think would be a knock for some people, but I'm using the graphic user interface as well, and that's another reason why it didn't score super high in the aesthetics, because ultimately the looks of the graphic user interface as well too are kind of important. And I showed you guys the volume level. It doesn't look all that impressive. Kind of looks like something from the early 2000s more than anything in 2020 or 2021. So a little bit of knock there. Doesn't bother me though, so I just move right past it. My price paid, I gave it an 8.5. Another killer deal. Anytime you can get brands like Lexicon, JBL, Marantz, whatever, Martin Logan, SVS, whatever. The list goes on and on for high quality audio gear. It's still $2,000 though, and it was like a year old by the time I bought it. So a little bit of a knock there. Not the best score ever. But what's that? It's still a really good price. I would literally buy it again today, and I've had it for a few months, so that's always a good sign for me. That's a good test of time. But there are receivers out there that have come out with those newer features that this one's kind of missing. That one still has Dolby Vision. That one still has IMAX, but again, it's missing out on the HDMI 2.1. It's also missing out on the it's also missing out on the HDR 10 Plus too. But I'm not trying to shock the world with my quality. I just want something that I know is high quality and sounds good, and that system over there, for being a 4.1, sounds amazing. I wish you guys could hear it. So 8.5 when it comes to my price paid. So 9.5 when it comes to quality, 9.5 when it comes to sound, 7.5 when it comes to MSRP, 8.5 when it comes to aesthetics, and 8.5 when it comes to my price paid. That averages out to a 43.5 average guy hi-fi. I have little notes there, and I'd taken these notes a while ago, so that's kind of rubbed off. Took me a little bit there to read it. But 43.5, which is an 87% average guy hi-fi score. Very good overall score. It's not going to be the right receiver for some people out there, but ultimately, if you're looking in that $2,000 range, and if you could still come across it, then it might be something to give it a shot, especially if you're not using external amplifiers, things like that, because I do feel that the internal amplifiers are more robust than a lot of the amplifiers that you would find in kind of your more mass marketed receivers. So that might be something you consider as too. Well, it's also rated for 8 and 4 ohm, which is a big one as well too. That's just means that it really puts that kind of meat behind the powering those channels, which I always appreciate. Plus, I love it when, I mentioned this earlier, but it's a big point for me. I love it when receivers and amplifiers give you all channels driven power. That's the true power of the receiver. So when they're honest about the numbers, I just love it and I respect it a little bit more. So there we go. 87% average guy hi-fi score. I just love it. I would buy it again. But when it comes to receivers, if you look at them, you put money in the speakers, put money in the subwoofers. That's really ultimately where you can keep them for a very long time. But if you look at the receiver of your system or the processor of your system as more like a computer, then unfortunately these studios and all these technologies like Dolby Vision and stuff like that will make your system feel a little bit obsolete, even though it's not really. If you pay attention to the forums, then it's really hard to keep up with the Joneses with these people with massive budgets and stuff like that. But anyway, this has been a much longer video than normal, so I apologize about how long it took, but I ultimately wanted to get this one off and just move past that huge gap that I gave you guys. The fact that people are still subscribing to my channel and I'm not even making videos, it just gives me motivation. Even my friends, not very many of my friends know that I do this channel. It's kind of like a little side thing that I've been doing. Even a couple of my friends that know about it are like, hey man, put out a video. My brother's been bothering me. So shout out to all you guys for giving me the encouragement. The comment section, please use the comment section. If you own that receiver, I would love to hear your feedback. That's kind of what this would be. Ideally, this channel would turn into like a little bit of a forum, where if you own these Sony speakers, go on there, give us your feedback, let people chat, keep it nice. This is not a snobby channel. I don't have a lot of money. I'm not trying to be elitist or anything like that, which sometimes this, if we try to keep up with these people that have all this money, it can make you feel a little bit lost. But the good news is, you can have a very high quality sounding system for not all that much money invested, especially if you focus on the used markets like I do. So again, thank you guys for the continued support. I promise these videos will be coming out a little bit more rapidly here, and hopefully I can kind of improve my quality, because I'm a little self-conscious about what I'm putting out. Ideally, I would like to do something a little bit higher quality, production value, things like that. But if it continues to work, then I'm the type of guy that will put more money towards it to make it happen. So again, my name is Dustin, and the name of the channel is Average Guy Hi-Fi. Thank you guys again for sticking around and stopping by.